Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. Joined by Jerry Ostroski and Owen. Guys, it's good to see you. Jerry, I loved on Bill's squad how you were the only one that knew who Rick Emmett was.
That's because of age.
It is. I have a really good Rick Emmett story. Like, that brought back memories. So if you don't watch Bill's squad, you should already be watching it. But there was somebody got the key to the city of Buffalo.
Deion Dawkins.
I'm sorry, who was it?
It was Deion Dawkins.
Deion Dawkins got the key to the city of Buffalo. And then they listed all the other people that got it. One was Rick Emmett, and Joe Marino didn't know who that was. And I'm like, well, I saw Rick Emmett in concert when I was 18 years old. And my best friend had a ticket to go with me, but his father wouldn't let him go because he had a final the next day. So I ended up going with his older brother or something. But it was Rick Emmett, who was the lead singer at Triumph.
Right.
And the opening band was the Good Rats. And I found out today that the Good Rats were not a band that was local to Rochester. I thought that was just a local Rochester. No, they're like famous. They got like YouTube stuff. They were
right.
Yeah, I had no idea how old the Good Rats were until today.
See, I didn't realize Triumph was a Canadian band. My Canadian band. I got T-shirts hanging. I've got Tragically Hip T-shirts. I'm a huge Hip fan, and all that. So knowing the Hip and watching them probably 6 to 8 times, seen them a bunch. Yeah, I didn't realize Triumph was a Canadian band, but I guess they are. But yeah, I showed my age, man, even though the lyrics. So that was kind of scary as well.
Yep. So, Owen, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to listen to one Triumph song.
Yes.
I was going to say, that whole conversation is right over the head.
Yeah, so this podcast is good therapy to recover from the Bills' loss to Miami. I realized that was only 2 days ago. But we're going to be talking about some pretty good offensive linemen today, I think. We're going to cover Najee Harris from Florida, Jaden Roberts from Alabama, Josh Thompson from LSU, Fernando Carmona from Arkansas, Logan Taylor from Boston College, Cage Casey from Boise State, Trey Zune from Texas A&M, PJ Williams from SMU, and then Spencer Fano from Utah. Owen, what were your overall thoughts of this group before we dive into the first player?
So this group, a lot, like over half of them I had already previously watched because of summer scouting. So, and there's a couple of guys in here that I'm like super high on, specifically like Fano. I know Josh Thompson was someone I was really high on. We did the summer scouting, watching his Northwestern tape before he came over to LSU. So I was curious to see how he kind of fared when it came to what that step up in competition was going to look like. And then also we've had guys that we've already watched previously, like the Jaden Roberts from Alabama, who I wasn't previously a big fan of, but we'll see what it looks like now that I've got the more updated film. But yeah, like Roberts, Josh Thompson, Cage Casey, PJ Williams, Spencer Fano, I had a good idea of who they were before coming into this episode. So this was a good catching up period for me.
Yeah, so let's start with Najee Harris from Florida. Jerry, what did you think of Najee Harris?
I like Najee Harris quite a bit, and he's obviously a cross-positional translator. I mean, he was a center coming out of IMG. His roots are kind of in the center position. He's been playing guard at Florida, obviously, because they've got the highest-rated center in college football by some, who we evaluated last week. And Slaughter, I believe, is the last name. So he's playing left guard out of necessity, but you can see the body movements, the way he plays, his leverage and all that, very much in the lower half of the realm, has some center tendencies to him. I liked him quite a bit. He's a natural leverage guy, I think, because of that center position. He's got hip power on double teams. He can move people, strong hands, can anchor on the bull, all that stuff. Is very aware as a player, doesn't really get caught off guard. He can evaluate stunts and things like that. I think the one thing when you look at him on film, he's got average length as far as an inside guy goes. I mean, I don't see that, or I don't consider that maybe as much as I would outside at tackle. I know a lot of guys are all about length. Look at the linemen that play in Buffalo, all long guys. But you look at average length, I think he's a good athlete. I don't think he's a great athlete. He's a guy that, maybe because of that lack of elite athleticism can get out of position. He'll grab and things like that. But I thought he was adequate when he pulled. He's got good movement, good recognition. I think he's a great fit for a team that's looking definitely for a guy that you can use as a center guard. He's going to be a guy that if you draft him, you can keep him on the roster. Early on, get you out of games, but eventually maybe we'll develop into a starter and all of that. So, I look at this guy. I think if he finishes the season well, if someone falls in love with him, maybe a late day 2. But I think he's probably like a 4th and 5th round guy. Really good player, and like I said, plug and play guy, tone setter, all that stuff. Going to this group we're evaluating today, I thought this was the best group so far overall of talent of the groups that we have evaluated. But yeah, I like Najee Harris quite a bit.
Oh, and how about you?
Yeah, you definitely see. This was a guy I forgot about Harris because I talked to Sam Teets about him heading into the summer scouting period, and he was a pretty big fan of him as like a top 100 player coming into this season. Last year was his first year starting, so this is his second year of starting experience. Like Jerry said, I feel like he would be a good center prospect, especially if he was there or starting there for at least the past 2 seasons. Unfortunately, Slaughter has been there, kind of blocking his pathway there. I think that's going to be something that's going to be able to untap once you get to those kind of post-season circuits where teams are going to be trying him out at different spots and different positions. I think the fact that he can come in and be more of a natural center as well as having tape of him playing at guard is really going to help him out when it comes to teams valuing him, especially towards that earlier day 3 picks, like Jerry was saying. I do like his movement, especially for a guy who's north of 310. He's definitely got some power in his game, especially when he's moving through those double teams. I don't hate his one-on-one blocking power. I don't think it's something he's going to hang his hat on. I think he's a good athlete, not a great athlete. I wouldn't call him like an elite guy. If he was like, especially comparing him next to Slaughter, it's not something that really pops out to you when you're evaluating them back to back like we were last week to this week. So he's a guy that this is your classic. You draft a guy in early day 3, and you have a spot that needs open competition on your offensive line, and this dude finds a way to get in as a starting rookie because he's just got a lot of those intangible stuff. Sure, there's some things he needs to work on. I think he's a little bit still, second year starting, has some stuff technically with his punch, or even with some of the other stunt blitz pickup stuff. I think he's improved from year 1 to year 2, but always get better at that. So a guy who has some high upside because he's so new to starting, but also has some of those intangibles that you're like, okay, if I grab this guy in round 4, I could probably find a starting spot for my line if I do have a spot available.
And Jerry, do you think Najee Harris is scheme specific, or do you think he would be able to play in most NFL schemes?
I think he's a bit scheme specific. I think he can play in a lot of schemes, but I don't think he's a guy that if you're looking for a rangy type athlete to play predominant outside zone, blocking schemes like they do in Buffalo and that type of stuff. I don't know if he's your guy as far as that goes, if you want a lot of range and length. But as far as, running gap schemes, inside zone, even duo, I think he's perfect for that, which is what a lot of teams in the league do. And like I said, I think he can pull. He's an adequate enough athlete to do that. But if you're hanging your hat specifically on, lateral movement, outside zone, wide aiming point type stuff, probably not your guy. But 90% of the scheme sets in the league, I think he's fine at.
Okay. Next player, Owen, Jaden Roberts.
Yeah, Jaden Roberts was a guy, so me and Newt covered him last year in preparation for last draft cycle. And this was when, I don't know if this was earlier on in our working together between me and Newt, but this was definitely one of the guys that set off the we don't agree on a lot of players element of that podcast. Because Jaden Roberts, I wasn't the biggest fan of him, especially after last year. Obviously, massive human being, 6'5", 327. He was on the freaks list just for being like such a low body fat percentage. Absolutely jacked dude, and it shows up on tape. He's able to move guys around and be that kind of power element at the guard position. He's a bit more fluid of an athlete, I think, than I gave him credit for initially, where I liked some of his lateral movement when he was a puller, or when asked to kind of take over and reach over when taking over for an outside zone on the back end. I think he's got some of those abilities to move despite being as large as he is. And when he's getting getting a head full out of steam, you're going to get trucked over. For me, though, the same issues I had with him last year kind of stuck with me a little bit this year with the film he's got on right now, which was he was a bit of a leaner. He was a bit too aggressive with his hands, and he'd be able to get knocked off his base and fall off of blocks often, especially in pass pro at times. I remember watching last season against Omar Lot. And that was one of the things a lot of times he was able to use his momentum against him a lot and knock him off his base, just having him lean up against him and using that speed to beat him on the interior. So as a guy that you're lining him up, kick ass 3 yards in a cloud of dust type offensive guard, I think he does really well with that. He has some athleticism to tap into. But for me, I really need to see more so him be steadier on his feet, not on the ground as much. And is the guy that is more in control of how he plays.
Again, huge individual, like Owen said. I like his aggressiveness. I like his punch. He's got a lot of power and anchor. He moves bodies on double teams and down blocks. When I look at him, he's very heavy-handed. He's got good grip. When he gets his hands on you, and he tends to shoot his hands early, like Owen said, which when you're playing twitchy, crafty 3 techniques – can cause a problem. You can get him knocked down. But when he gets his hands on you, once engaged, he stalls people. I mean, you're not getting off of him. I think he's a pretty adequate athlete. I liked him in space. I think sometimes maybe in the past you have to watch. He gets a little heavy, so he's got to make sure he keeps his weight down. One of the concerns I have about him, he missed quite a bit of time early this year with concussion issues. So you've got to now, once he gets to the combine, they're going to rake him through the coals. I mean, you got to make sure you vet that as far as the concussion stuff. But man, I didn't get to watch him last year, Owen, so I didn't see any of the progressions or maturity from last year to this year. I just see a guy, and he reminds me of a dude that once he gets, I think, in an NFL camp, and they really kind of refine some of those issues he has with being, a little bit too forward heavy and things like that, and can get his techniques refined. You just look at the anchor and the punch and the natural strength and the size. I think he makes a team and play somewhere as long as he can stay healthy and refine those things. When you get guys that rely so much on their strength, you get what Owen talks about. They rely on it so much that they sell out on it, and you get those overshots and things like that to where, the guys like, Omar Lott, who I watched a lot last year as a possible target for the Bills, could win reps because they're so good at quick hands and things like that. But I liked him. I think he's a definitely not – I would give him a little bit above average athlete for his size. But, man, hands on you, it's over. It's done. And I think that's – in the NFL, that's a big thing. I mean, when you get some of these guys you're dealing with, if you're able to stall guys just yourself, that frees up a lot of things. So I'd like Roberts. I think he's got a place. He's probably, I don't know if he's super refined by the end of the year, which I don't know. And this is a week where you're going to want to watch him because they're playing Oklahoma at 2:30. I think 3:30 Eastern, maybe 2:30. I'm not sure exactly on the time. They play Oklahoma this week in Tuscaloosa. And between the Alabama offensive line and the Oklahoma defensive line, you've got about 7 guys that are draftable guys. I mean, this is a big-time heavyweight matchup between those two groups. So you're going to see a lot out of him because what Oklahoma does is they run a ton of run stunts, slants. They'll pick and loop and everything on first, second down. They move a lot. So some of the stuff that maybe are iffy will be exposed this week. This will be a really good week to watch him. But as far as the things you can't teach, man, he's got them all. And, you probably look at a guy that's someone falls in love with him because everybody likes guys like this. Maybe late day 2, but I'm probably thinking anywhere from round 3 to 5 right now with what I see out of Roberts compared to other guys that we've evaluated so far.
So, yeah, Jerry, I was listening to you, and I was trying to figure out, does Jerry like Roberts or Harris more? You answered it there at the very end, but you had me on the edge of my seat. So you have Roberts a little bit ahead of Harris.
Yeah, I do. And I think the biggest part is the length of it. I mean, 6'5", 327, the strength he brings. I mean, it's just kind of superior to Harris, who I like. Don't get me wrong; he's got a lot of that too, but not quite the size and pure strength that Roberts has. You know, they might fit skill sets. You know, and the same thing. I mean, you draft Roberts; he's playing guard, playing right guard. He's playing left guard. I think Harris, you know, obviously has that positional versatility between center and guard as well, where Roberts is a guard. He's not going to play tackle. He is playing guard.
And Owen, did I interrupt you? Did you have a comment?
Well, no, I was just gonna kind of double down on what Jerry was saying. Was like, yeah, with Roberts, there's not a lot of more players on this list. Obviously, we have some Top Gun guys on this list coming up eventually. But when it comes to traits, his ability to get hands on and take his hips, and then the guy's just done for the rest of the pass rush rep if he can get you. If you try to bull rush through him, or he's able to kind of sit on that, I think that's going to be one of the best single traits we evaluate of any of these guys in this class, especially with that combination he has and his ability to use his weight for that. But I do think you pointed out with the Oklahoma matchup this week, I think that is going to be a very tough one for him, because one of the things I thought he struggled with was some of that more dynamic, change of direction, especially when picking up other stunts and things like that, where he was already kind of lunging a bit and looking for that. So I think if Oklahoma is able to utilize those run stunts a bit more, run blitzes, like you were saying, I think that may be something that puts him in a bit of a blender. So I am very interested to see how he performs this week. So I'm glad he pointed that out.
And then also, you know, you look at last season and where it translates to this year. You know, PFF again, like we'll always preface it saying it's not the be all end all, but it's something you can use as a guide. Out of returning Power 4 interior linemen from last year, he ranks 5th among returning players this year in 2025 at a 78.6 PFF grade in 2024. So obviously he's had some success.
Yeah.
So next player, Josh Thompson from LSU. So Josh Thompson transferred to LSU from Northwestern. And as Owen said in the beginning, nearly everybody that saw Josh Thompson's Northwestern tape, like, we definitely wanted to see him at LSU. Jerry, what was your first impression of Josh Thompson?
My first impression of Thompson is he works his rear end off. I mean, he is a finisher. He is a guy that is constantly moving forward. He's going to latch on and try to run you and finish you. I think he's an effort guy. I think his effort and his desire to finish make up for some inabilities. I'm not sure just how – I know he's 6'5", 315. I don't know how naturally stout he is. Might be a little bit long and thin. I don't think he's a big, heavy-set guy. And I'd like to see arm length verified at the combine. I'm not sure how long he is in the arms. But when you see this guy he's a player that like I said has that effort. He's got good quickness in his feet for a guard. I think he's a guy that can do multi-versatile things as far as schemes go. I don't know if he's a really when you look at him, is he a natural? There's two ways to move people. I think the guy we just evaluated is a dude that can grab you and move you just continually physically. Thompson, I think, moves a lot of people with pressure and effort as opposed to just natural strength. I don't know if you understand what I'm getting at when I talk about just pressure and effort, but through a rep, once he's on you, and he's working to finish. He's running his feet. And as a defensive lineman tries to come off and make a play, they lose pressure as far as their strength and anchor. And because he's throwing that effort in and running his feet and moving, he's able to get guys moving because of that. So I think he's a guy that's fine inside. He's definitely adequate in pass pro, handles stunts and games real well in pass pro. Yeah, I mean, I like him. I think he's a guy that comes in year one and, you know, he's probably competing for some depth positions, swing guy in the interior. And then as they develop him, maybe get him a little more stronger, a little thicker, put a little weight on him, refine his technique. Maybe you get a quality starter in year 2, year 3. But I like the kid. And a big part of it is I think there is a place for these types of guys, these attitude guys that play with a lot of effort and a lot of want to, and he has that to me.
Yeah, former right tackle at Northwestern. I don't know if it was Jim. I don't know if it was on one of our podcasts or if it was someone I knew personally, but someone said he had some kind of attitude issue while he was at Northwestern, but I couldn't really recall what it was. But
probably had to go to class and study.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, so there is a character flag. I believe Northwestern was not upset to see him go. I think is the way that somebody put it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean Northwestern, they're definitely like sticklers. My former director of player personnel I worked under at UB, his stop right before UB was as the assistant or as a graduate assistant or like analyst at Northwestern for a few months there. So he was giving us all kind of the inside scoop of what they kind of look for, what their self-imposed regulations are on their team, and he just could be a guy that wasn't really fitting in nicely with those self-regulations, whether it's a grade point thing or an attitude thing. Like they have super high standards at Northwestern, which is why, despite being in the Big Ten, they always kind of continuously struggle to be kind of a top-end contender because they're so rigorous on their own player pool that they don't really allow themselves to have a lot of these guys who you bring in just because they're good at football kind of type of thing. But I mean, I was a big fan of Thompson, watching him at Northwestern, even his right tackle tape where I watched it, I thought, okay, he's going to be a guard. His move to LSU, game one, which is one I was really eager to watch, he got fed to the Wolves against Peter Woods and DeMonte Capehart of Clemson's D tackle front. I think he showed a lot of what I really liked. A lot of the stuff that I had graded out-wise when he was at Northwestern projecting, I didn't have to change much of that grade just because he showed that fleet of foot, being able to match your mirror, had some good footwork, especially both in space and when engaged. Like Jerry was saying, he's able to get his hands on. Not a natural power guy, but runs through that contact, finishes his blocks, and is able to kind of play through that whistle and generate some movement there. You don't have to be the biggest, strongest guy as long as you know how to weaponize your lower half and drive through that contact, not stop your feet on that contact. You can still generate some movement there, especially when you're working through double teams. So he's a guy that I don't really love as a power player, but he's got good athleticism. He's got good drive in his legs. He's got good he's got good intangibles like Jerry was talking about. I love his IQ. Again, having to play at Northwestern, has to be an intelligent kid. Whether or not that lasted for long, who knows? But he's a player that I was super high on and projected him to be kind of a guy that teams could fall in love with, both mentally and with his athletic profile. And that jump up to the next level could help him get there. And I feel like he's kind of answered the door for some of those things. I do still think there's some problems with his hands. Watching him against Peter Woods, I mean, Peter Woods is just an absolute animal, so he was throwing him around a bit, but utilizing his hands a bit more, that's where you see like the length questions that Jerry brought up, especially that game specifically. But when he's able to kind of reset himself and overcome that and get to the right spots and not have that level of dominant athlete across from him, he definitely looks like he belongs in the SEC. So he's answered a lot of my check marks. I think the combine is going to be the next step for me when it comes to measurables, true athleticism, see how he flows, and some of those other drills. But he's still one of the guys that I'm absolutely high on for this class here.
You brought up something I want to talk about, Owen. I'm glad you brought it up about the hand usage. I think he's not an extender or a natural puncher. I think he's kind of a grabber, and he gets tight. So there's really when he's running guys, whatever, there's not much space in between. He's not going to extend those arms very much. It's more get them on and then steer as opposed to physically placing hands and moving them that way. So I saw the same things with that, and I think that's where maybe he gets in a little bit of trouble on some of his finishes, where if he gets off balance or he rises throughout the block, when you watch him, it's because of that hand placement. That's a good pickup, and I wanted to talk about that earlier, and I forgot.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the kind of nuanced differences you get from a guy like, especially watching him and Roberts back to back or talking about back to back.
Yes,
we have two guys that are completely different. Roberts is absolutely going to nail you with these heavy hands and long arms and a punch, whereas Thompson's more so get into you with my feet, utilize my lower half more than my upper half kind of guy.
Right.
Both of you are day 3 on Josh Thompson, if I am listening to your assessment.
He is for me. Yeah, I would say day 3. He's a 4, 5, 6 round guy. I'd say probably 4 or 5.
He's on the higher end of day 3 for me. I could definitely be convinced he's a low end day 2 guy. If I see a bit more games, especially against some more higher end competition. The Clemson game kind of gave me some pause, especially with his power and his anchor profile against the top end competition type of guy. So I think Jerry was right on when he said, like, if he's not going to be drafted into a team that needs an immediate starter and he's allowed time to kind of sit on the bench and get some more weight on his frame and develop some more power in a pro strength and conditioning system, then I think that would be where you get a lot of your benefits. But if you're drafting a guy in the third round, you're expecting him to be a starter right away. So I think he has a bit to go with that. So I'd definitely be high day 3 on him.
Next player, Fernando Carmona from Arkansas. We're running the SEC gauntlet right now with the guards. Jerry, what did you see from Fernando Carmona?
I like Carmona. I think he's an effort guy. I think he's a guy that does a good job for them. Arkansas's got a really good offense, and he fills those linemen fill a specific role. I mean, you got to know your pass pro. You got to be able to adjust and those types of things. A quarterback is a running quarterback. They're going to have to get downfield and make plays. I like him. He's a downhill power guy. He creates movement on his double teams. He can get kickouts. He can get some movement individually. He's got some anchor versus a bull rush, gets his feet in the ground and everything else. I think you look at him, he's got length limitations, obviously. He's not a tackle. He's a guard because of those length limitations. Maybe not super long at tackle, but definitely adequate inside and a good protector inside at guard. He's got to get a little better with his hands, his hand placement, his individual hands, and those types of things. And it's funny, most of these college guys have to get better with their hands. Not all of them are have mastered it yet. Gets a little out of control here and there. And I think you can tell that, you can tell he's got some edge to him. He can get some penalties by, blowing a fuse a little bit, which is something you got to clean up. But I like him. I like competitors, and Fernando Carmona is a competitor. And, I think he has an opportunity as a guy who's in a pretty interesting scheme at Arkansas that if he gets into the Senior Bowl or some of the East-West games and those types of things, and he's got a chance to rise up the boards a little bit if he's got good practices and all of that against, high-end talent that you're going to see at those things and also at the combine. So I like edgy dudes. So this guy's one of my favorites just because of that. I think he's probably a day 3 guy. He maybe late day 2, probably anywhere from rounds 3 to 5, 3 to 6 as an interior guard. But I like him. I think he's got some good attributes, and I think he'll be on a team somewhere next year.
Yeah, these guys are all in the kind of the same bucket so far we've talked about. They've been in that.
Yes.
They've been in that early day 3 kind of conversation. Pick your flavor, pick your guy. Whoever you fall in love with is the guy you're going to take at this group.
Right.
Carmona definitely has the size and the effort, kind of combining the last two guys we talked about, where he has the power and he has the effort of Roberts and Thompson, respectively. He's definitely going to be a guy that buries dudes and wants to finish off plays. I do think what drove me nuts is what he has, like this good anchor and ability to kind of absorb contact, but he's constantly grabbing shoulders. Like, it was driving me insane every time. I'd be like, oh, this is a great rep. Next rep, he's grabbing shoulders and letting dudes get into his chest, where you can see he's got natural anchor and ability to drop that lower half and absorb some of that power despite not having hands on. But even like his bad run reps, it's because he's outside grabbing shoulders. And I think for me, especially a guy that, you can tell he's kind of more newer to the position. He was a left tackle for Arkansas for a while. This is his first year playing at guard. And watching his tackle tape, you can tell that, okay, he's not most natural in that space, and he was still reaching outside for his hands there and allowing guys to get into his center of mass. So he hasn't taken a lot of steps with his hands. I think the positional change has caused that. So he's a guy that maybe has some more upside than you'd really expect from a guy when you're coming at it from Carmona. I think he is a 5-year senior transfer over from San Jose State. He's got a little bit more upside just because I think moving positions so late into his career while at Arkansas kind of allows him that period of relief, and think that you can get a little bit more out of him once you get your hands on him, that you've seen the baseline. So he's another guy in that same area where I'm drafting him. I'd hope he doesn't have to start right away, so that way I can get some work with him. If I have an absolute dire need to start him, then I'm not super worried. We'll work with him through the season. But again, same kind of with the rest of this group of guys. I think for me, of this group of guys, I think Thompson's the one that speaks to me the most, but these are the guys that all are right there, same grade range with the rest of those guys.
Yeah. Want to point out one other thing. So Newt Weston, you can catch Newt podcasting with Owen on Wednesdays, but there is an off field here he more than likely he would be a little bit lower on some teams' boards or off some teams' boards. I don't know what the off field is, but Newt, I am aware of that same issue that you are pointing out in the chat. So that's something to point out for anybody else that is scouting Carmona. Just be aware that there is an off-field concern with him. Anything else on Carmona? Are we ready for the next player? Okay. Logan Taylor from Boston College. I believe he's going to project a guard, but he is 6'7", 312. Jerry, Logan Taylor, tackle, guard, and what did you think?
Am I first on this one?
Sure.
I mean, he's playing guard right now. I think he's probably a guard at the next level. He could play some right tackle. I liked him. I think he can move, he can bend, he can do those things. I think at 6'7", 312, though, he's got a hard time generating self-power. He plays with effort, good technique, and those types of things. But I think his length causes issues sometimes inside. He's got a decent base and anchor, can handle the bull rush and all those types of things. But I look at him probably later, like rounds 5 through 6, maybe 7, because of just that bit of there's guys that are tall inside that are big and thick. At 6'7", 312, he's got a bit of gangly to him, a bit of awkwardness inside, and because of that, those pads will raise up on a lot of stuff. Does he maintain knee bend all the time? Is he going to be an adequate puller or trapper, kick out guy at 6'7", 312? He does it, but I'm not sure how. I guess the term I would use would be ballistic. It would be so. It'll be interesting to see how he translates. They can get him stronger, get him bigger, get him thicker. But I would say as his best shot at the next level, he translates as a guard and and all those things. And he could probably an emergency swing right tackle if he needed him. But I like him. I mean, I don't dislike him, but he does have some things to work on.
Is he the lowest of the 8 players this week for you, Jerry?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He's not.
Okay.
He's towards the bottom, but he's not.
Oh, and what did you think of Logan Taylor?
Yeah, so first of all, I just gotta say that I can clearly tell I'm the youngest one in here because every time Jerry would say he's 6'7", I was doing the stupid hand thing, and I was
7.
I had no idea what that was until all my little freshman sophomore players we had a call that this was the hand motion for it, and they started like, can we change it to 6'7"? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? But now I can't unhear it because they just yelled it every year all throughout the year. So. But 6'7" tackles playing guard, man. I mean, we covered the guy from Pitt earlier on in this series.
Yes, that's a good call. Yes.
There's a lot of guys that are going to be that in that taller range that we're going to be trying to project inside a lot in this class specifically. And I'm not the biggest fan of it. I know I was a big Jack Nelson guy last year from Wisconsin, but he was like 6'7", 320, 330. Like he was in that upper range of weight. Whereas you're going to be a guy that is 6'7" and playing on the interior, you need to also pack on that muscle, like Jerry was talking about. Where you're 6'7", 312 on the tackle, yeah, that can live, that can survive. But he just doesn't have the length to play out there consistently. So you're gonna need to play a guard, but you're gonna need to fill out that frame more. So I know you're playing it right now and playing it adequately. But I think for me, a lot of what's going to come down to whether or not I want him to be a more highly touted draft pick is going to be, can he fill out that frame and meet some of the more measurable stuff that I'm looking for? Especially like when you get to the combine, are you going to be up in weight there? What's your bench press is going to look like? How are you going to rep that with the shorter arms? Are you going to be able to figure out some of those things and look more the part of being an interior player as opposed to a tackle that's forced to play guard right now?
Okay. Next player, Cage Casey from Boise State. So, Owen, you had said that you had seen Cage Casey when you were doing summer scouting.
Yeah, so I think it was when we were doing the top 5 lists. I forget who I was doing that with. But we did top 5 tackles. Who was the other podcaster I was with, the other draft professor?
Yeah, I believe that was Taylor.
Yeah. And he had him in his top 5 for that time being. Right? He was either top 5 tackle or top 5 guard coming off the Ashton Genty season, where I feel like he kind of got thrown into the spotlight because of that. And you got some good looks at higher level competition because Boise State was such kind of a wagon last year with Genty leading the way. And this is going to be the type of offense that he's going to excel in, especially with Casey. I think he's gonna have to kick inside the guard. Like I do like some of the reps at tackle at times, but for me, having him be a guy that's interior, be able to down block and attack, be a bit more aggressive that way, keep some leverageability and not have any questions. I have some questions about his length, high effort player. So I think a lot of the stuff you saw with him clearing out lanes for Genty his last season for Boise State and continuing to do so this season, I think will generate better once he's inside, especially when that level of competition starts to go up, which you saw a bit of that. His struggles at tackle when he ended up playing against Abdul Carter last year and some of the higher end players that he ended up having to face on the boundary.
I like Casey a lot. I think Casey's a really good football player. I like his size. I like his bend. He's flexible. I like his technique a lot. His step sequences are on point and really good. His body position is good. His hand usage is good. Where he gets in trouble, like Owen's already talked about, I'm not sure about length overall as far as arms and stuff like that. He's going to have issues with the longer type of defensive ends, with the long arm stuff and some of the ghost rushes, chop lifts, and things like that. That's stuff that's going to bother him. I think if he had to play right tackle, he could and would be fine because you're not playing against the other team's usual premier rusher. But obviously, you kick him inside, he becomes a very, very premier talent at guard. I like the guy quite a bit. I like his effort. I like the way he plays. Like I said, all those things. I think this guy is, again, another tackle that can kick inside, but he can play outside if you need him to. The thing that he's got to really clean up because of his length, okay, or lack thereof, he's got to really be better in his first couple steps in his pass pro. I don't think he gets enough width. There's a term we use as lineman outside of tackle. It's you say win your spot. By the width of the defensive end, you've got a kind of an imaginary spot you got to get to before that person does, and then you can dictate the pass rush as opposed to the other way around. He's got to get better with that second step in his drive catch phase to where he's gaining ground and getting that width as opposed to the first step going out and then kind of stepping under himself and turning. If he can clean that up and get good at it, and I think he's athletic enough to clean that up, I think he can play tackle if he needs to. When I say that, right tackle, but really this is a guy that kicks inside, becomes a premier guard, and I like his competitiveness, his toughness, all those things. But again, I think much more polished technique-wise at this age than maybe some of these other guys we've looked at.
Owen, is your grade on Casey top 100?
He's just outside of it for me, so he's like, top of that same kind of the same buck we've been talking about, top of the day three type of conversation for me, just because I really did like a lot of stuff Jerry was talking about technique-wise. I did like his ability, especially when projecting inside, to be kind of a strong-handed run blocker, bring some level of athleticism to the interior. Just need to be able to see that translate a bit more, especially with him being 6'5", 311. Is it going to be something that's going to be a transition process of him going inside, or is he going to be more naturally able to slide in? So that's something I'm a bit more curious to see how that plays out.
I think he's like a third round guy, maybe fourth round. I think I got him about the third. I think he could maybe verify even better if he goes to the combine and his measurables are good, his testing's good, and then he gets himself again like some other guys to an off-season all-star game showcase like the Senior Bowl or whatever, which I would imagine he'll be at the Senior Bowl. And he has a great week against that top talent and shows what he can do. I think he has a chance to, bump. I mean, there's some people that talk about him being a definite round 2 guy, maybe. But I still think 3 is a safe bet and 4 as far as that range goes for Casey. But I like him quite a bit.
Yeah. So there's definitely people that have day 2 grades on him, and that was the reason that I was asking that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
Okay, now we're flipping to a few guys that are probably going to be in the tackle class. Trey Zune is the first of the three tackles for today. Owen, what did you see from Trey Zune at Texas A&M?
So you say that we're switching to the tackle class, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Jim. Did you watch? I don't know if you saw this or not, but
he played center last weekend.
Yeah, he has 88 snaps on the season playing center. I actually noticed it when I was watching the LSU game because it was the last snap of that game, and I'm watching the left tackle. I'm like, okay, and then I'm watching this play. I'm like, did they mistakenly put in a play where he's not in right now? Like they score a touchdown, so obviously it's a good strong play for the line. But I'm not looking at that entire left side of the line. I'm like, where is this guy's number? Did they move him at tight end or right tackle? No, he's at center. And then I go and watch the Missouri game where he's playing the majority of that game at center. And I had some stuff with him at tackle where I felt like he was struggling a bit with the space and not being as fluid as I really, really like him to be, especially when he's going to be outside. And he's not the best athlete in the world, I think. That's my problem, especially with like getting out of the stance and getting into guys. His movement, his depth in space, being able to adjust to the speed rushers especially. He was able to give up the outside and allow the inside counterback again. So moving him inside was something I didn't know if he would really be able to do just because I didn't see that on tape with him at guard. I thought he was a career left tackle until this season when he started snapping and playing center. And while I still think he's not a phenomenal athlete for that position where you still see some issues with him getting out of the stance, getting at the blocks, and he's not Jake Slaughter out there. I'll give you that. But as a guy that if you're running some power gap stuff and you want a dude who can get upfield and hold his own one-on-one with a blocker interior, especially these bigger kind of nose tackle types, I would trust him to be able to go in there and do that a bit more than I would at like maybe offensive tackle. So I think he's got some limitations to his game, especially on the inside and even more on the outside. So that's why I think I like him a bit better as a center than a tackle. But I do think he does have some nice floor there when you're looking at maybe finding a spot. He can probably find a spot to play at all five positions if you ask him to.
I look at Zune, and I think that if you grade him strictly as a tackle, it's probably round 6 or 7. I think he's limited as an athlete. I think he's heavy-footed. If you watch him run down the field to chase some plays, he kind of lumbers a bit. I don't think he's athletically where he needs to be a tackle in the NFL. When I look at him inside, I could see him playing some guard. Honestly, now that I know, see him playing some center and all that, I think he might translate there better than anywhere, honestly. I wasn't a big fan of Zune when I watched him. I think his footwork, his foot speed is average at best, and that's going to kind of limit him as far as that tackle stuff goes. Really old school two-hand puncher all the time, which you can't do outside of tackle in this league. You've got to be independent hands. You throw two out there all the time, they're going to get chopped, swiped, and you're in trouble because he doesn't have the athleticism to recover the way some of these other guys do. Now, he is a guy that's a 3-year starter. He's been was on the third team All ACC. He's a captain. He's got a lot of intangibles with him, and I think he is an attitude guy and wants to finish. But the lack of athleticism is my biggest concern, which causes those issues in some of the finish in the run game where he falls off, doesn't have the torque because he's on the ground because he can't keep up and all those things. So if a team brings him in, I think he's going to be a guy that they're going to try at a lot of positions to try to figure out where he fits best. Honestly, he may end up finishing as a center, maybe a center and a backup guard. I'm not saying he can't be a starter in the NFL, but he's got some things to work on quite a bit. And I think probably another guy that's really going to have to shine, at the combine as far as not running necessarily the 40, because I don't expect his 40 to be very good at all. But in those 3-cone drills and short shuttles and all that stuff is where he can prove that maybe he's a little more athletic than he looks on film.
Okay. Next player, PJ Williams, tackle from SMU. Jerry, what did you think?
I love this dude. I think he's really good. He's really athletic. If you watch SMU, they run a ton of tunnel screens and screen plays and stuff out in space. He has no trouble translating, step down inside, punch that defensive end inside, get outside on the screens. He brings his own power. He's heavy-handed. He'll move people. He's got range and recovery. Lots of things to like about him outside of right tackle. I think he is a tackle. I think he can play inside at guard if he needs to. I think he's a power right tackle on a team that really covets guys that are aggressive and will get after people. He competes, so I like him quite a bit. I thought he was good in pass pro. Again, like I said, brings his own power, anchor, all those things. I think he's a really good player. If you moved him inside the guard, I don't think that'd be an issue. I think he'd play inside a guard very, very well. But I watch him and think he's got a lot of upside to be a starter at right tackle in certain on certain teams. And if you watch him, I think everybody, a lot of people should watch this guy. I think his athleticism, the way he can play outside in the screen game kind of shows just what type of athlete he is. He's got some twitch to him and also that power. So, I like him possibly in day 2, maybe early day 3. I don't think he's leaving round 4, honestly. And I do think he can get better. That's the other thing. I think he can get better. And even though he plays predominantly in a 2-point stance, I have seen him in a 3-point stance, and I think he can do that as well, and everything else. So I like this player a lot. I think he's a good one.
So, Jerry, it took us 7 players today before you started talking about somebody that was playing in a 2-point stance. I just thought, that was my observation from that.
I can't not watch players now without thinking, okay, is he in a 2-point stance or is he in a 3-point stance? Every single time now, when we're getting prepped for these episodes, I'm trying to prep to see which one of these guys Jerry's going to limp ass for not being able to touch the ground with his fingertips.
Well, it's funny. Some guys you see in a 2-point stance, who's our right tackle at Miami?
Francis Maligoa.
Yeah, he can play in a 4-point stance if he had to. You can just see it in what he does. There's some guys in 2-point stances that can barely get in 2-point stances because they've got no ankle mobility, no hip mobility, and they're stiff and they're playing in these offenses that are more worried about taking up space than actually physically moving people. This guy here has that ankle mobility and bend and all those things. He can do what he needs to do, whether it be in a 3 or a 2-point stance.
Yeah, PJ Williams is one of those fun guys. Him and Thompson were the two that came out of summer scouting kind of high, thinking I was going to be higher on than a lot of people. Apparently not. Jerry loves him too. With PJ, I think I was watching Louisville for last year's draft. I think he was one of the earliest guys I got onto because I think I was watching the Louisville game and to watch some Ashton Gillette film. And he was one of those guys that you just pops and you can see that dude just threw another human being 5 yards downfield or clear out a guy on a screen pass where he just catches your eye when you're watching the other team or other side of the ball, which is always my favorite type of player to come around to find. So PJ Williams is someone who I had early interest in when coming around to summer scouting. I definitely came away with the same way that Jerry was can move laterally. When they ask him to play in space, he's more than happy. Aggressive player, has that strength, throws dudes around. He can play tackle. I think he can play guard. He has that ability to come inside and be kind of a people mover on wherever you ask him to be. I really love him as a guy who can kind of crash down and down block a side of an offensive line from that boundary. So I do like him best as a tackle, especially when utilizing his strengths to the best ability. But if you move him at guard because you had some stud tackles already, I wouldn't be complaining either way, though. So I do think he has some technique stuff to clean up. Obviously, we say that with a lot of these guys, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the power, he's got that natural nasty that you really like to see. That I like him a lot. I have him with the round 3 grade, especially just because he is a tackle as opposed to some of these other guys where we're questioning whether or not they have to move him to guard full time.
And the other thing you got to look at with the Williams is with the trend in professional football nowadays of playing the 6th offensive lineman a lot. If he's on your roster and maybe isn't a starter, he would be an outstanding 6th guy to come in and do a lot of the things that those guys do at the end of the line, along with tight ends and stuff, because of that athleticism and power just can collapse the end of the line of scrimmage down inside. So you got to look at that as well. I mean, he's a guy that could play that 6th lineman spot also.
Okay. So both of you, I heard, Owen, you said definitely a 3rd round, that would be inside your top 100. Jerry, you gave a range, day 2, day 3. Question, out of all of the tackles, and we still have obviously Spencer Fano, who's going to come right after this. Out of all the tackles, the players that would be definitively a tackle when they're drafted, is he one of the 5 best tackles that we've talked about?
This is odd for me to say this. I think he's one of the 5 best tackles if you covet power tackles.
Okay.
I kind of look at these 2 groups. I kind of look at tackles nowadays in 2 groups. I look at Spencer Fano, who we're going to go ahead and evaluate here in a few minutes, as more of the longer movement type tackle. If I want a tackle that's a power type guy that can do a lot, is good in movement as well, but you want a guy that's going to move people in the run game, this is my type of guy, okay? I look at PJ Williams as more of a Leon Searcy type, if you remember him from back in the day with Pittsburgh. Could take his hands and stick them through your chest. That's how I see him. A guy like Proctor would be one of those guys. So I'd say he's one of my favorites in that power group, as opposed to maybe a Shelton, Fano, those types of dudes that are longer, more run-oriented, pure pass pro type guys. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. I'm learning something as I'm listening to you. This is like first-class content here, Jerry.
Well, you're welcome. I try my best.
Owen, where does PJ Williams sit on the tackles that you've evaluated so far?
So right now he's in the top 10. He's not in the top 5. He's in that back half of the top 10. Just because I've also graded most of the top guys. We'll talk about Fano in a second. Also Lomu, Maui Goa, I'm counting as a tackle, and even some of the guys that we haven't gotten to yet, like a Caleb Tiernan, and obviously we've also talked about Isaiah World and Proctor and all those other guys. So he's in that second batch and that second group where all those other guys, I think if you took them in the first round, you'd be pretty okay with that. Whereas PJ Williams is that second wave. Okay, you missed on those top end players, those guys you have some elite skill sets as well as not being too far back. He's just is a bit too messy with some of his reps technically. Where I think that if you brought him in and had him as your 6th offensive lineman for the first half of the season, and then he eventually works his way into being your starting right tackle, I think that could be the process. But I don't think he's a clean, day 1 starter projection type player right now.
You see, I put Maui Noah and Williams in the same category. I think Maui Noah is a people mover and a guy that's going to have no problem translating either inside or at right tackle. I think if somebody drafts him to be a right tackle, that is more than okay. I know that, and I had him, I said the same things. I look at him as a premier Pro Bowl guard. But, I think he could play right tackle very easily and be just as good. And maybe as he ages, bump him inside to counteract, age and wear and tear. But I see Maui Noah and Williams. And again, is Williams like I'm saying a first round guy or second? No, I'm not. But I categorize by body types and style of play, maybe a little bit more than just what position.
Okay. And then the star of the show is Spencer Fano from Utah. Right. And Jerry, I remember you saying, when are we going to evaluate Spencer Fano? Well, today is the day. What do you think, Jerry?
I think he's a freak, honestly. I've never seen a guy that's 6'6", 308 that looks kind of slender. And he does. I mean, there's no sloppiness to him whatsoever. He's a guy that moves like a defensive end, probably as a tackle. His movement skills in his pass pro are superior. And it's funny because you watch him in pass pro and his techniques aren't necessarily super clean and super solid, but he's so athletic and so naturally strong that he gets away with it because of just being superior to who he's playing against. I think he's a guy that translates as a first round. This is a first round guy, one of the cleaner guys that you see, like a Maui Noah. I mean, just a clean player, plug and play at right tackle, Pro Bowl caliber type guy. Some people see him as maybe being able to kick to the left side. I wouldn't put that past him. I think he's got those kinds of feet and that type of athleticism, but, he's got torque and power through his hips. He can bend. He's got ankle flexibility, all those things you're looking for. He wants to finish. You watch him with his linemen. They communicate very, very well. They're able to pass off stunts. This guy is a clean evaluation as a first-round guy for me, more so than some of the others we saw that maybe play out of control and that type of stuff. There's no out of control with Fano. I mean, everything he does has purpose. His movement has purpose. And I think he's probably a top – right now, if I was to guess, I'd say he's probably a top 15, definitely top 20 guy this year in the draft. I think he's a guy you draft, you put him at right tackle. If you need him at left, you put him there, but you put him at right tackle and just say, okay, we've got that figured out. Now we worry about the other four.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a guy I got into early on because I was trying to catch up with when I knew was making some videos for my channel over the summer, doing his summer scouting rankings, and he had Fano, and I was just kind of covering his top tens, kind of get caught up with that. And he was a dude who just popped immediately to me. Like the fact that he was 6'6", 308, and he's, this is going to sound weird, but this was when I was just freshly out of work in the actual scouting office. So the first thing I saw was like, wow, he's a little light in the ass. Like he just looks a little thin. Like Jerry was saying, he's very pared down. He's not like these big hulking masses of dude. But the fact that he's that pared down and he's able to get off the ball and still move dudes and plays with a nasty streak at times where he's wanting to bury guys, get out in the space, run his feet through contact. Not only does he have some natural strength to him, but he's able to get out of the stance and get into you before you can get out of your stance. Like he pairs that well, that strength well with that athleticism to then bury guys. I felt like his technique definitely needs some rounding, some polishing there. Those Texas Tech edge rushers kind of took him to school a little bit this year, especially on the inside counters.
Yeah,
he was
I
able
watched
to
that game. Yeah.
Set outside real well, and then they were spinning inside and kind of terrorizing him all day. But every other game you watch, he's on top of it. He's able to mirror match so well that even if he doesn't get a clean strike on right away, he's still in front of those guys. And to answer, I'm high on Fano. He's my highest graded tackle at this moment, and he has been since I first watched him this past summer. And his kind of continues with that despite watching some updated film. I think he's still that top 10 or top 10 grade for me. He's got a blue chip grade. And to answer Newt's question in the chat, going back, I just went back and looked through my big boards from 2024 and 2025. The only offensive tackle that I have graded higher than the Fano is Joe Alt from the 2024 class. So I liked him better than any of the true offensive tackles last year. Even with Will Campbell, I felt like he's just being more of an actual offensive tackle. Coming out of college, I did less question marks with him than I did with Campbell, even though Campbell was a stud. So he's my second graded offensive tackle over the past 3 seasons.
When you see a guy like Fano, you watch him and he's so athletically superior and he's got all the bend in all the right places and plays with such efficiency, it can somewhat look boring. I mean, some of these guys you watch play and they've got to put so much effort into things. It's almost like a yard sale. There's just crap everywhere, right? There's just hands and arms and just crap all over the place. And you watch Fano and you don't have that. And sometimes you get lulled to sleep like, oh, he's kind of blasé, or maybe he's not as urgent, but it's not that at all. It's the fact that he's so efficient in his movements and the way he plays, and it's so effortless. It looks that way on film. And but yeah, I right now, out of anybody we've drafted, probably even more so than Maui Noah, he's probably the highest rated guy I've seen.
So Jerry, who would be graded higher for you, Maui Noah or Fano?
Fano. That's what I was just saying. I mean, out of the guys I've seen, okay, I think Fano is, and I think Maui Noah is clean as can be as well. I just think that none of us are sitting here saying Fano is going to be going to guard. I mean, when we look at Maui Noah, some people think he's going to get kicked inside automatically. Some think that he can play right tackle. I think he can be fine at right tackle until they need him inside. I don't, maybe there's some question marks there with Maui Noah that there's no question marks with Fano. I think the only question mark with him is if they had to, could they play him at left as opposed to just playing right tackle. But of all the guys we've evaluated so far, he's my highest rated player.
Okay. And then Owen, Fano or Maui Noah for you?
I'm high. I'm there with Fano. I mean, Maui Noah. Is it Maui Noah or Maui Goa? Because there's a G in
Maui Noah.
it. Maui Noah. All right.
It's an N sound, not a G sound.
Gotcha. Maui Noah is my second highest tackle in this class, but there's a significant difference between him and Fano for me. Like, not significant as in like I think he's far and beyond way better, but like I have him with the top 10 blue chip grade. Maui Noah is like higher end of just the true first round grades I have. So I have Fano as my favorite so far, and Maui Noah. I think the question marks with him, maybe playing inside. I agree with Jared that I think he can play outside at right tackle. I'm not super questioning about that. Similar to where I was with Campbell, where I felt like he could play tackle, but maybe I'd like him better at guard right away. But with Fano, there's no question. I think he's going to be a stud at right tackle, and if you want to move him to left tackle, I'm sure he could figure it out with how good of an athlete he is.
This is an interesting question, and ironically, Newt, this is probably a question I would have asked you, but from a positional importance standpoint and a grading standpoint, if a player can play left tackle, are they graded differently than if they can play right tackle?
I would say in some cases they are. In my case, I don't care. I'm looking for the best 5. And if my best lineman is the center, which honestly, if I'm constructing an offensive line, I'm making sure my center is right before everybody else. That's just me. I don't care. I mean, obviously, left tackles are a premium. Hell, they wrote a book and a movie about it, right? So obviously, there's some importance to them. They've got some traits that you have to have out there that you don't at other spots, but there's other spots you have to have traits too that you don't have at left tackle. So, I would say in the NFL, I'm sure they probably do. But me personally, I'm looking for the best players and because you got to have 5 good ones. You don't just have a great left tackle and then average everywhere else. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think for terms of grading purposes, I do have a positional multiplier, but it's specifically for offensive tackle, not like left versus right, because a lot of times when you're talking about a guy who's playing right tackle but can't play left tackle, that's going to be reflected in when you're grading them on the athleticism part of it, because that's usually what's preventing them from playing that blind side. Like, they can be a right tackle in college, and you're just like, well, I just don't think he doesn't have the juice to play at left tackle, and that'll be reflected there as opposed to making a unique multiplier because you think that guy could play left tackle versus one guy can only play right tackle. Usually that's already represented when you're coming in with a grade.
Because you could be in a situation like I was in college. We played strong and quick side, so we actually flip-flopped. So I played right tackle on the right side and the left side every game, and then I bumped inside the quick guard and played right and left side according to formation. So, so we used to do both when I was in college. So it depends. But, I would say in the league there's definitely some prejudice as far as, left tackles over some other positions.
Okay, so the offensive lineman that we're doing next week, next week I think is going to be a pretty solid group just like this today was. Chase Basantis from Texas A&M, Max Ihinacore from Arizona State, BJ Williams from Pittsburgh, Ben Taylor Whitfield from TCU, Xavier Chaplin from Auburn, Austin Barber from Florida, Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern, and Jennings Dunker from Iowa. And like Jennings Dunker, that's going to be a good discussion. Trevor Sikkema of PFF, I think on their offensive line, or I think when they were doing like their mid-season top 100, he had Dunker in his top 10. Not top 10 offensive lineman, top 10 overall.
If you study Iowa, and I've studied Iowa, that is how you play offensive line, in my opinion. They get after people. There's not a whole bunch of short foot chopping going on up front. They get out of their stance and run. And, of course, you would have to figure they would play that way with Kurt Ferentz being their head coach. They're still doing 1990s NFL stuff at the college level. They've changed some things, but no, Dunker is a very good player.
Yeah. And then the week after, we're doing Bo Stevens from Iowa. So we're going to have a couple of Iowa offensive linemen back-to-back weeks. So we definitely have Oh, and then we also have Logan Jones from Iowa.
I was going to say, one of the guys we covered last year came back. I couldn't remember if it was Connor or Jones.
Yeah. So we're covering 3 Iowa offensive linemen the next 2 weeks. So
sounds good.
Yeah, we've got some good players. Why don't we pause for a second? Jerry, do you want to let everybody know about all of the other podcasts that they can find you on?
Yeah, so obviously I'm part of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we've got shows all week long. My show is Wednesday nights with the NFL XM Sirius NFL host Sig Fracassi. It's called 7 Days to Sunday. We do that on that'll be tomorrow night. But we have shows all week long. Sometimes you'll see me pop up on the show with John Fina on Mondays, or possibly on the beat on Tuesdays. But we've got content all week long. And then, of course, I do Bill Squad with Jeremy White of WGR and Joe Marino from Locked On. We do that on usually Thursdays and then instantly after the game. But this weekend, because I was traveling and Jeremy was traveling, we did it on Monday afternoon, did our game reaction to Miami yesterday. So doing that. And then I did it in one today that they started now called it's called NFL Pro Squad. And it's a panel. There was 8 of us former players like Bradford Banta and some others on there, Quadri Ishmael and some other guys. We did a deal on the NFL today. So started that today, something they're kicking off. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Awesome. Oh,
yeah. So you can find me here, obviously, on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Tomorrow we'll be covering a bunch of D linemen. Me and Newt Weston, who was in the chat there. So that'll be fun to come back and get another 8-9 guys knocked out for this upcoming draft class. But other than that, over on YouTube at Weekly Huddle, it's kind of a dead zone right now. We're working through it, but we'll get some stuff up there eventually. And then also on Twitter at Weekly Huddle, you can find some random enough thoughts or hear me complain about how the Sabres are terrible. And I'm at this point so sick, I might as well be on their injury report too. So
Owen's playing hurt, man.
Yes,
that's good.
Owen was playing hurt today, so Owen, I hope you feel better soon. Welcome to the Draft Professor. If this is your first podcast that you have caught with us, we're here every day, twice a day, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern every weeknight, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Sunday morning. And every podcast right now is breaking down the draft class. So generally speaking, we're doing 8 players at a time, unless it's quarterbacks, then we do 3 or 4 at a time. So if you're looking for information on a certain position, go to the Draft Professor YouTube page at NFL Draft Fanatic, pick your position of choice, and there's a playlist. So, for example, this podcast goes on the offensive line playlist. There is one other offensive line podcast, and you can hear multiple people's opinions of the same offensive line, So, right now, there's only a couple players that I have seen where the evaluations are really big. And Owen, I'm curious when you guys do Darrell Jackson Jr. when you and Newt do him.
Tomorrow night, me?
Is that tomorrow night?
That's tomorrow night.
You see, yeah. So some people are grading him top 50 and some people are grading him day 3. So I'm really curious. And Dane Brugler had him in the top 50 as well. So one of the things we learn at this time of year is which players aren't graded the same. And then that makes for really good content to discuss how do we evaluate a specific player and like what do we value in our grading. So that's part of what this type of content lets us figure out. But for Jerry Ostroski, for Owen, for myself, for the 108 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.